Hi, this is Carl with Small Biz Thoughts, and this is a success tip video for managed service providers. You know, there's an old joke from my youth with a picture of a roll of toilet paper that says, "The job isn't done until the paperwork is finished." Well, truth is, there's a lot of wisdom in that little joke. Of course, the real point is you have to finish going to the end. You have to work all the way to the end before you stop. I have a bit of a weakness in this, in that I'm willing to plan way in advance, but then right before the actual execution, I sort of feel like, okay, I've taken care of all the details, and then there's this pause of activity. Well, that pause can be filled with more activity. It can be filled with something that's focused on actually finishing the job. You know, think about the recent horse race, right? I went to a Kentucky Derby party, and they spent, hours and hours and hours waiting for this 3-minute race. And the horse that won put on the steam right at the end and passed one horse after another. And all those horses that backed off the tiniest bit, well, they got to be second, third, fourth, fifth, sixth, but they didn't get to be first. And the same is true with many things in our business. We have a tendency to do all the paperwork and get everything done until right when it's needed the most, and then we relax. And it's in the relaxation very frequently that problems happen. You know, when you think about an airline, airliners almost never drop out of the sky, and almost invariably when they do, it is pilot error. It is a problem with a human being making a bad decision, or not having enough training, or just doing the wrong thing in a panic. And in large part, it's because they haven't been in that situation enough times to have the muscle memory of what to do. Think about your own business. One of the reasons that I always encourage people to not just look at their backups, but to do an actual restore every month and to rotate that through technicians is I want every technician to be familiar with everything it takes to restore data in an emergency. If a technician sees an event viewer for the first time in an emergency, they're not going to know what they're looking at. If they see a recovery, a backup recovery system for the first time during an emergency, they're going to be frazzled. They're going to be distracted. They're going to not have the muscle memory to know what they're looking at and to do things the right way. And the worst thing you can do in a disaster recovery is pick the wrong medium, get messed up, stop halfway, destroy the old medium, destroy the new medium, and away you go, right? One of the rules for having a good backup that I always worked with was, let's just assume the first medium that you try is bad. It's either the drive you were backing up to at the moment, or it's the most recent complete backup on the VDR, or whatever. Let's just assume it's going to be bad for whatever reason. And then we'll make sure that we know how to get to the next one and the next one. The point is, when somebody's in that situation, they have to be trained all the way to the end. You can't train them how to set up the backup, how to test the backup without restoring the backup. And if they've got 90% of the training, 95% of the training, 99% of the training, they still don't have all the training that they need to be successful in an emergency situation. This also applies, obviously, to day-to-day operations. When you're doing monthly maintenance, it's really hard to argue. It does no good to check for updates one more time. How many times in our lives have we had to have one more update that we did not expect? And, this happens all the time, even in our own personal motivation. I'm about to put on my online conference. We do this every 3 years. We got a big checklist. The checklist has to be updated. Technology changes a lot in 3 years. The issues, the topics have to change. So we started in November for a conference that goes on in May. And so we took a long time. We did everything right. Took a long time to set up the site, get the graphics, so forth and so on. And then when we started launching it, we moved apace as we expected to. But I'll tell you what, 10 days before the conference starts, I got an email from somebody who said, hey, can I help you get more people to your conference? And my first thought was, well, it's kind of done, right? I mean, I think I have, anybody who's going to sign up has signed up. But then I realized, no, no, I've been doing this since November. Why say no now? Why not just say yes? And I will put together some materials for you and you can help me get more attendees to my conference. There's no point in relaxing in that last 1 yard before the touchdown, right? Because you can stay forever 1 yard away from actually making a goal, or you can put out the extra effort and get the goal. So when you think about your business, think about what can you do to make sure that you keep pushing all the way to the end. That when you get to the 95 or 99%, that you don't give up, you don't relax. Because it only takes a tiny little effort at that point to push all the way to the end. And here's the tip I would have for you. When you have a project of any kind, whether it's monthly maintenance or a long-term project, such as a new client install or setting up the cabling or a new wireless system for a client, look at the end game. Look at the last little bit, the last stage of the project, and think about what can go in there that is both cleanup, tune-up, and looking around, as well as actually good productive material that is going to push that project forward. I think you're going to find that there's a lot of little stuff, not the least of which is documentation. So many people tell me, oh, I never have time to document. No, that's baloney. You always have time to document. You choose to use your time elsewhere. So take that time and literally put documentation and verifying documentation into that last week, into that last little bit of the project, and make sure that it gets done. Put the client training in that last little bit. Make sure it gets done. Put the first backup into that last little bit of the project and make sure it gets done. Very often we think that the last piece is kind of the evaluation of the project, or some people call it the post-mortem. I don't really like that term, to be honest with you, but the last bit is not evaluating the project. It is pushing through to the end, not relaxing, not letting your guard down, not letting the project just sort of fizzle away. There's a thing called the peak end rule, which is very important. When clients look at how you executed a project, it is highly likely that there are 2 points that will stand out in their mind. The highlight of the project, which may be the point where you get started, or maybe the point where they see everything light up, or the end. So the peak or the end of the project. How does it end? And unfortunately, most of our projects end with a whimper. We look around, we say, oh, that was very good. Thank you very much. I'm out of here. Have a nice day. Call me if you have any problems. That is not the way to end. When we did new client setups, like when sometimes you would refresh an entire office, we would always end by getting a cake that had our logo and the client's logo on them, and bringing in some punch and literally throwing a party that says, congratulations, it's a network. Congratulations, you're in the cloud, right? Whatever it might be. That way, there's actually a thing that says, this is the line that we're drawing that says, we're done with that, we're moving on to something else. The other problem with things sort of whimpering out at the end is that the client doesn't know there's an end. Sometimes you finish a job and you wander off and there's nothing that tells the client, we have absolutely put an end to this. We have closed the last ticket. Congratulations, right? And if you look in our project management book, we talk about the fact that a project has to have a formal ending. It has to have a conclusion. And when that happens, the client needs to be involved because they need to know that you've done the things that are scariest for them. You have finished on time, on target, on budget, and then you're done. There's too many projects in IT that just fade out and go on forever and ever and ever, and then people forget that they haven't actually finished the project. Clients hate that, and they are very, very acutely aware of it. So make sure that the ending is as exciting as the beginning. Make sure that you make a note of it and make it perhaps the highlight of the whole project. I welcome your comments and feedback. Like it if you like it, subscribe to the channel, and put your comments down below. For Small Biz Thoughts, this is Carl Polachuk, wishing you the best of luck in everything you do.